It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody, welcome in. My name is Chris, and this is a show that comes equipped with its own helmet. Hello there, you yacht possums. Thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate you very much. I mentioned this at the end of Monday's show, but a word about the schedule here in December. We are winding down slightly here for the next few weeks. There was a show yesterday, Monday. There's obviously a show today, Tuesday. There will be a Yacht Club show with Andy Behrens on Wednesday, but no show on Thursday. And then, yes, to a show with both Jake and Josh on Friday, and that will be our pattern for the next few weeks. The only thing missing from the usual schedule will be Thursday, so please do plan accordingly. I also wanted to take a moment to give my condolences to Dave Piper, my longtime friend and collaborator, who you probably know from the Silliest Thing I Saw This Week videos that we put out on our YouTube channel. Dave's wife's dad passed away over the weekend. Wasn't unexpected, but still obviously terribly tough. If you know Dave, if you'd just like to reach out, you can find him on Twitter at Dave A. Piper. We won't be putting out a video for this week. I have certainly been thinking about Dave and his family a lot over the past few days, and there's really no good or smart way to move on from that, from stuff that matters a lot to the stuff that we talk about on this show, which of course does not matter at all. But we have a job to do, which is entertain the football-loving and quite possibly sometimes the football-hating among us. So we'll get started today by talking about the Monday night game, the Patriots with a pretty easy win over the Giants, not creating all that much drama in my household as New England jumps out early 17-0 and mostly never looks back. I think it probably says something more about where the Giants are than where the Patriots are, but it was also another national stage for Drake May, and one complaint that Pats fans have had about this magic carpet ride that was so unexpected even after week 3, that terrible loss to the Steelers, has been like, why don't they start the games better? What was the deal with Drake May in Cincinnati when at the beginning of that game he looked like he left his brain on the team bus? Well, I didn't feel that way last night. No such concerns. First drive was a field goal, but the defense didn't give anything up. New England gets a big opening kickoff return. Ramondre Stevenson was the running back for most of that first possession until he got tired. More on that in a little bit. He converts a 3rd and 1 on that first drive. They matriculate the ball down the field with the short throws to Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry. The makeshift offensive line missing its left tackle and left guard. They held up pretty well in that first drive. I'd say they mostly held up pretty well the full game. They get inside the 10, and Travion Henderson does get a carry. He gets stuffed. Then they throw it to him in the left flat. It's a little bit behind him. He catches it, but that slows him down, so he gets tackled. They're 3rd down from the 4 with Stevenson back in. They try a fade to Diggs in the end zone, and it's incomplete, so they kick a field goal and are up 3-0. For the Giants' first series, they go like 5 and out, like 1 first down, and they punt, and Marcus Jones returns that punt for a touchdown, so it's 10-0. After that, my first note for the Giants is you can't fix stupid, because Jackson Dart scrambles up the right sideline, and instead of getting out of bounds, he allows himself to be absolutely poleaxed, coming off missing 2 games with a concussion. It just appears that the young surf movie bad guy may never get it. It was a good gain, but Theo Johnson then starts a fight as a result of the hit and kills the drive. They punt again, and May goes to work again. A beautiful layered throw deep to Hunter Henry that gets them in the red zone. An almost identical fade in the end zone that Diggs was targeted on, except this one's to Kayshon Boutte, and he scores. It's 17-0. Second quarter, the Giants did kind of basically have one good drive while the game was competitive. It was Devin Singletary that got them settled down. 5 straight carries against a Patriots run defense that hasn't been the same without Milton Williams. That gets the Giants going. I don't think Singletary really was the plan. Those first 2 series were literally literally, all Tyrone Tracy. But then Singletary did come in to start the second quarter, and it was working, so they stuck with him. He was the proverbial hot hand and basically was the offense for 2 straight drives. The first of those ended with a good throw to Darius Slayton and a good run after the catch for a touchdown that made it 17-7. The Giants got a stop. Singletary went to work again, got them to the New England 30. Dart brain farts, a read option keeper that he throws, causing an illegal man downfield. Then he throws a good ball to Theo Johnson in the back of the end zone. I guess it would have been a pretty good catch, but it did go over his head and like right through his hands. But then the kicker comes in and does something I've never seen before. Just kicks the ground, misses the ball entirely. Check that man's sportsbook account. That was fishy as hell. So it was still 17-7. From that point forward, game pretty much over. Mid-second quarter, what a throw out of Drake May. A bomb shot to rookie third-rounder Kyle Williams, who's not been very good so far, but a perfect throw, a great catch in the end zone to get his foot down. It's 24-7. Gunnar Olszewski gets crushed on the kick return and fumbles. New England gets a field goal. It's 27-7. Dart tries to throw a pick to Carlton Davis right before halftime, but Davis drops it. And I do not have many notes from the second half. The only touchdown came on the first play of the fourth quarter. Singletary takes a wildcat snap where he fakes a pitch back to Jackson Dart and just runs, and he scores. He deserved it. Played very well. Felt like he had kind of Wally-pipped Tracy in this game anyway, but later in the fourth quarter, they made it official. Tracy got a carry, took a shot to the head, and was carted to the locker room, probably with a concussion. Both of these teams are off in Week 14, but, you know, super desperate people will presumably be adding Singletary, based at least on my advice that's going to be coming up later in the show. I remain somewhat skeptical of Dart. Good athlete and a runaround, try-hard guy, but the pass offense, I felt like, obviously looked better with Jameis Winston, which I'm not saying they should be playing Winston. Play the kid for sure, but he can't or won't protect himself. And that Lions game that Winston, where he made Wan'Dale Robinson a star, that is apparently not what Dart is going to do. And it's not a fair evaluation. The Giants have a really bad roster. We're not making like final pronouncements on Jackson Dart. I'm not saying he's terrible, but it is New York, which means, you know, they get hyped up. Everybody wants everybody to immediately be Josh Allen. And it's very clear that immediately that's not what Dart is. The only other detail to wrap up is probably burying the actual lead, which is that Patriots backfield. Not amazing for Travion Henderson. I drew a line of demarcation here at the end of the third quarter. By that point in the fourth, it was getting pretty boring. We were mostly chopping it up in the Yacht Club Discord and keeping one eye on the game. And at that point, end of the third quarter, the snap count was 30 for Stevenson, 19 for Henderson. Overall, it wound up being 38-28. Henderson did have a burst 26-yard run up the right side in the third quarter that Ramondre could not dream of doing. And that home run hitting ability certainly keeps Henderson higher in the ranks than Stevenson. But Andy Behrens has said this correctly. The online bros rushing to declare a complete takeover for Travion Henderson were wrong. This will be annoying, and it will make it tough to believe that you're definitely getting 3 straight fantasy playoff games of absolute starter-worthy stats out of Henderson weeks 15 through 17. I think you'll probably use him week 15, at least as a flex. I don't imagine, for me, coming out of their bye week, going into week 15, I'll be putting Travion among the top 15 or even 20 running backs.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, let's go back and discuss the 4 games from this past Sunday that we have not yet mentioned. If you don't hear the game you're interested in, it means I talked about it on Monday's podcast. Today, we will have Falcons Jets, Vikings Seahawks, Saints Dolphins, and Jaguars Titans. And then it's time to start thinking about Week 14. The waiver wire is always relevant for somebody, and we'll talk about developments that might have you casting around for a solution with the final bye weeks coming up in Week 14. To help me with the waiver wire, John Daigle from Establish the Run will join, and I think you'll have fun. I thank you again so much for listening today. We are sponsored by Wildgrain. You've heard me talk about them. What a great time of year to try them. Wildgrain is the first ever bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, seasonal pastries, and fresh pastas. Everything bakes from frozen in 25 minutes or less. Something I don't always mention. Unlike store-bought options, Wildgrain uses simple ingredients you can pronounce and a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly, plus is richer in nutrients and antioxidants. I have a finicky belly and I notice a difference. And buddy, if you love fresh bread with dinner, you gotta try a Wildgrain, because I don't know how they do it, but from frozen in less than half an hour, it's like you just went to the bakery. It's an incredible idea for holiday parties: cranberry pecan rolls, Parmesan herb biscuits, apple pie bites. Easy and really delicious. Also a great gift idea. Send a box or an e-gift card. I got Wildgrain croissants here in the freezer. I just decided I'm having an egg sandwich when I'm done with the show, and I can get you $30 off your first box and free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/Harris to start your subscription. $30 off your first box, wildgrain.com/Harris, or use the code Harris at checkout.
What does the film say?
All right, back to the rest of the Sunday action. Falcons, Jets, two running backs we love. You would expect maybe some fireworks, some excitement. We got there eventually. This is the last game of the week that I watched, and the first half was rough, and I was worried. Nobody scored in the first quarter. The Jets had 89 yards of offense in their first 27 plays. Nothing really worked. There was basically one good drive the entire first half. The Falcons, right before halftime, had a long one where things finally went smoother, and Bijan Robinson got a crack from the one, but he was stuffed, and Tyler Algier scored instead, and I could hear it. I could hear the angry emails. You told me that was never going to happen again. The only Jets touchdown of the first half happened because the Falcons muffed a punt inside their own 5, whereupon the next play, Breece Hall, right up the gut to score his touchdown. 7-7 in a snoozer of a first half, but it got a lot more fun after that. In the third quarter, Bijan had a huge gain on a screen, and Kirk Cousins was roughed on that play, so that got them inside the 15. Algier got a carry, no. Bijan got a screen, almost broke it and scored, but next play, he bounces a run outside and scores easily to put the Falcons up 14-7. Several times in this game, Jonathan Vilma, who was doing this game and whom we love, he would go, wow, in the middle of a Robinson run or a Robinson cut. When it was 17-17, another really good drive put together by Cousins without Drake London and without Darnell Mooney doing much of anything. More on him in a moment. Instead, Algier kept himself alive, breaking a tackle on a screen. Then Cousins hits David Sills, and he breaks a tackle and scores to give the Falcons a 24-17 lead. And at the end of regulation, with the score tied, Cousins laid a perfect third down pass into Darnell Mooney, and Mooney alligator armed it because he thought he was going to get lit up. 2 catches for him. Really disappointing after he played very well against the Saints last week. That was frustrating. Kyle Pitts, on the other hand, really good game throughout. Cousins was checking down most of his throws, and Pitts was the first check down a lot. He had a long run after the catch in the third quarter, but I think you know my feeling. You can start Kyle Pitts in a meaningful fantasy game on your own time. The Jets, disaster first half for that offense, only score because of the fumbled punt, but Tyrod Taylor certainly makes the operation smoother overall, gives his receivers a chance, and A.D. Mitchell is the one who will pop in the box score, and he should, because it wasn't just in the box score. He was really good. Late first quarter, he drew a long interference. He also converted a 3rd and 7 with a nice sideline grab. And then Breece Hall had a great toe drag catch, looking like a wideout in the third quarter. Very next play, Tyrod throws a bomb to Mitchell, underthrows it, really, because Mitchell's speed is real and he was open going to the deep post, but he came back for the ball. The defender tried to adjust and fell down, and Mitchell catches his first NFL touchdown and doesn't drop it going into the end zone. The kid is obviously very talented, And obviously, we've also talked about his reputation for being a bit of a knucklehead. This game doesn't vault him into must-start territory, but we like talent. Mitchell was considered a first-round talent and fell to the second. He's going to come up in waivers. That's all I can say. On the same day that Sauce Gardner gets hurt right at the beginning of that Colts game, the Jets kind of look smart for taking a chance on Mitchell. Poor John Mechie. He had an atrocious hands day. You had Vilma during this broadcast talking multiple times about how, all right, no Garrett Wilson. These young Jets receivers, they've been catching a lot of footballs on the jugs gun. He must have said jugs gun 10 times. Well, Mechie needs extra work on the jugs gun. He dropped a touchdown in the third quarter, so the Jets had to settle for a field goal. Not great. Mitchell actually got another deep shot in the fourth quarter. Could have been another long touchdown. The throw wasn't very good. Tyrod scrambled in key moments and stayed scrappy. And, Mitchell is the one who goes low to scoop one off the turf on the final drive with the score tied. They are set to go for another play, and they false start when the center forgets the snap count and everyone else moves. But that's okay because they were still in field goal range, and Nick Folk blams a 58-yard field goal that never got more than 20 feet off the ground. And the Jets win, which, is that great for their prospect of getting the quarterback they want in the draft? Maybe not, but it is good to teach young players how to win. Hall and Bijan Robinson both come through. Mooney absolutely doesn't. We'll see whether London can play next week in a hard game against the Seahawks, because it should be noted, while Kirk Cousins isn't amazing, he is keeping the thing on the tracks. He's not completely washed. I can point to 4 or 5 challenging throws in this game that he nailed. I'm not sure Michael Penix would have nailed those. So while we're not starting Cousins, we can hope that he could keep the stud Drake London rolling if, as I say, London can return. Let's talk Vikings Seahawks. First time the Vikings have been shut out in 18 years. So I think it's fair to say maybe Max Brosmer was not immediately the answer at quarterback. The world's fishiest concussion for J.J. McCarthy does not lead to immediate resurrection for a team that has such a good defense. And the defense played great in this game again. How many times have we come on the show this year and said, yeah, eventually they give up points, but how in the world did this defense keep this game this close for as long as it did? Much easier to talk about the Seahawks. We got our first clunker out of JSN, and it stinks. You could tell before he adjusted to the reality of the situation, Sam Darnold was still starting every progression by looking JSN's way, but he would just be blanketed by 2 guys, or sometimes have just one good man coverage on him. And the Vikings were getting pressure, and this was a scoreless first quarter, really because of this combo of a deep shell to stop the JSN plays and an aggressive pass rush from Minnesota that was getting home. And what the Seahawks eventually settled on was running and field goals. They had a pick six, which came after Darnold had gotten crushed in his own red zone and lost a fumble. They were up 13-0 at the half, having done almost nothing on offense. But eventually, as it tends to do, if the other team's offense can't do anything and keeps turning the ball over, the dam did burst. Kenneth Walker, I thought, was really good here. And I know the box score is going to show him and Sab Cav, Zach Charbonnet, looking close numerically. And you'll see Charbonnet with the touchdown. This was a Walker game until it didn't matter. Walker got the first 4 touches of the game. He was in again for the second drive. I will say, when they got into the red zone in the second quarter, they did put Charbonnet in. They gave it to him 3 times, and he couldn't score. Darnold got sacked, staring down JSN again, and they kicked a field goal. First play of the third quarter, an outside zone toss play to Walker. Goes for a nice gain. Oh man, it was a heartbeat away from a house call. Harrison Smith barely grabbed Walker's arm and wrenched him down. This was much more Walker, the starter, and Charbonnet, the understudy, while the game was competitive. Though Charbonnet is often the choice down in close, but it just feels for sure like explosive plays will be coming for Walker soon. Charbonnet's touchdown came on a drive where Seattle and Minnesota had both pulled the ripcord. Snap count the first 3 quarters was 31-18. I ranked those 2 running backs further apart this week. I'll continue to do it next week against the Falcons. The Vikings. Well, they used Aaron Jones, I think, 5 times on the first drive. They had 43 total yards through most of the first half, but somehow they get the gift of that fumble in Seattle's red zone. They're going to at least get a field goal, goes to fourth down. You've seen the play. Brosmer runs around, realizes, oh no, I'm going to get sacked. It's fourth down, and he shovels it blindly so as not to turn it over on downs, and instead shovels it directly to Ernest Jones, the linebacker, who house calls it. It's 4 interceptions for Brosmer, who was terrible in all the same ways McCarthy has been terrible, missing the deep out to Jordan Addison, flinging it a mile over his head, a mid-second quarter throw to Justin Jefferson that was behind him, and Jefferson had to break up, or it would have been picked. Jefferson's first catch came with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, a screen that lost yards, but Jefferson got body slammed for a personal foul. The very next play, Brosmer is looking for Jalen Naylor over the middle, sails it way over his head. It's intercepted. He would throw 2 others. And, we've long since given up on Addison. I had the debate with Andy on last Wednesday's show about me having Jefferson listed as wide receiver 24 last week. Andy said, come on, that's too low. And even still, the Yacht Possums on the Sunday live stream, some of you were like, hey man, please don't make me use Justin Jefferson. And you know, what did I say? I get it. You know what this is. His ceiling is always going to be higher than the other guys ranked near him. But obviously we're seeing the floor. It's unreal. And if you just don't want to do it anymore, who in the world could blame you? I would assume that 24 is the absolute max ranking that I'll give Jefferson this week against a Commanders defense that I'm not afraid of at all. He can, of course, go off, but the people throwing him the ball are not very good at football. Oh, and then in the third quarter, let's also mention Aaron Jones gets a screen, gets slammed to the turf, fumbles, and immediately clutches at his shoulder. The Fox crew kind of makes a big production. He's so tough for refusing to go in the blue tent at first, but then eventually he goes in the blue tent and he's out for the game. Jordan Mason actually got dinged up later in the game, but he returned. Given how many shoulder injuries Aaron Jones has had, I know they're saying it's a minor injury and maybe he will play here the next week or two, but I kind of feel like I'd be surprised. I'm not sure why you'd take the chance. We are sponsored by Pick 6 from DraftKings. It's easy, it's fun. You pick more or less of a stat for 2 or more players. If we're looking ahead to Thursday's game, Cowboys at Lions, suddenly a pretty cool game to watch. And the folks at DraftKings, they're giving us a free leg. CeeDee Lamb, over 1/2 of a receiving yard. I think he's going to deliver. So let's stack that with Dak Prescott over 263.5 pass yards. And let's say David Montgomery under 39.5 rush yards. If we make that a $5 pick set, we win $30. If it hits, then that's the amount we should be playing. You know, let's play mostly for fun, but it is fun. And if you get that Pick 6 app and you sign up using the code Harris, make that one $5 pick set, they'll give you $50 in Pick 6 credits. So in advance of Thursday, give it a try, get that Pick 6 app, and sign up using the code Harris.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Horse Donovan rides again.
Oh, if only. We wish. Jimmy Graham, we wish you well. But we are talking about the Saints. So a couple more games here to go from Sunday. I watched them. I don't think we're changing a ton of fantasy strategy based on them. But Saints-Dolphins, while incredibly stupid, did turn out to be pretty fun. Chris Myers doing the game like a Vegas lounge singer always adds an element of camp. As if this game needed more camp, 21-17. Looks like a very normal score. It was not a normal scoring game. It was 16-0 Dolphins at the half. Tua Tagovailoa did not play very well. The first drive, he had one good throw to Malik Washington, and then Darren Waller was wide open, and that was a nice completion. Devon Achane finished it off with an oh-so-quick run around the right side. It's 7-0. But from there, kind of a mess, even for Miami. The pass rush gets home. Tua has miscommunication with his receivers. Achane got absolutely laid out on an inside run, but fortunately was okay. Late first quarter, Waller runs all by himself down the left side against blown coverage and has another big gain. They would stall and kick a field goal. They'd recover a fumble, but very first play after that, Tua takes a deep shot to Jalen Waddle down to the end zone. It's intercepted, but no worries. The Saints were doing utterly nothing on offense, so the Dolphins got it back again and got inside the 10. 3 straight touches to Achane. They are committed to that man. That included a middle screen, but was incomplete. They kick another field goal and then another. But boy, they tried to blow this game. Tua had multiple awful throws to kill drives. Early fourth quarter, he almost throws an interception, but then immediately hits Waddle over the middle on a beautiful deep dig. That drive winds up with Darren Waller open in the end zone, but Tua got a little heat and overthrew it, and Waller couldn't get his feet down. But you can easily tell me a story that Waller, based on what I saw here, can be an emergency Tunyon. Just, I don't know, 2 for 47, not great, but like I said, should have had a touchdown had Tua not blown that throw. And they are running out this clock. This game is over. The kicker from the International Pathway Program from Northern Ireland, who was kicking for the Saints, had drilled a 56-yarder, Charlie Smith. But all the Dolphins needed was one more first down. It's 4th and 1 around midfield. They try to do the right thing. Ollie Gordon is in, not around the goal line, but, other places where it calls for a power run. The Dolphins are being a little more responsible with Achane, maybe based on that one hit he took. We love the more responsibility. We want Achane healthy. But Ollie Gordon in this play thinks he's playing Madden or something. He keeps hitting the juke button instead of hitting the pile, tries to lumber to the outside, doesn't get the first down, and that is when hell broke loose. The Saints offense, which had been nothing but dink and dunk, kind of stayed dink and dunk with a half a dozen checkdowns to Devon Vele, but then the lightning bolt. Tyler Shuck actually lets go a deep ball, and even better, Vele catches it, somehow gets his toes down, scores. Somehow they're within 2 with over a minute left, a little bit, and they false start on the 2-point conversion, and then Minka Fitzpatrick, not Minka Kelly, intercepts the 2-pointer and goes all the way to give Miami 2 points. And then the Northern Ireland kicker successfully kicks an onside kick, although I thought it seemed pretty clear on replay that it did not go 10 yards, but somebody in the league office couldn't stop laughing, so they just gave it to the Saints, and so they have a chance. And on 4th and 1, they can maybe go get the winning touchdown. It was not this man.
He's a Renaissance man with nothing to lose. A quarterback, a running back, a tight end to the smiling girl.
No, it was not Taysom Hill on the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1 with a chance to go win the game. It was Tyler Shuck, and he got stuck, as in stuffed, and the game was over. Phew, that's a lot of words about 2 bad teams, and I didn't really even talk that much about the Saints, which is just as well, because I steered you wrong. I talked about it with Andy on last Wednesday's show. I even convinced him maybe he was a little too low on Taysom Hill, and now I eat poop because that was not a good call. The Saints did not go back to the well after the Falcons game. Taysom Hill played 12 offensive snaps. 3 of them actually were at tight end. 1 of them was at quarterback for a 2-yard run. It's 2 touches. It's 7 yards. I'm a jackass. Don't use Taysom Hill. I hoped, I dreamed, I apologize to you, the listener. Chris Olave, you can use him. He scored a touchdown on a scramble drill in the 3rd quarter after Devin Neal had gotten it going a little bit after halftime. Emphasis on the little. If Alvin Kamara had done 14 carries for 47 yards, they would be fitting him for a coffin. Neal did not look special, but the Saints just didn't push the envelope at all until the last pass of the second-to-last drive to Vele. I'm going to mention Vele in honorable mentions coming up, but I don't want to chase him. You can use Juwan Johnson. He always gets checkdowns, and you can use Olave. Alas, this game was fun, but that is probably it. And lastly, the Jags walk all over the Titans. Didn't start out that way. First Titans drive was good. Believe it or not, Tony Pollard was kind of wrecking on Tennessee's first drive. 3 carries for 36 yards. Who are you and what have you done with the anemic Tennessee rushing attack? Oh, wait, there you are. They did get in the red zone on that drive. They looked for Gunnar Helm a couple of times unsuccessfully and kicked a field goal. And by now you realize that was all the points that the Titans would score the entire game. After the first Jacksonville touchdown, Chimere Dike fumbles away the kickoff return, so Cam Ward didn't even get the ball back until they were losing 15-3. They were just dead the entire rest of the day. You might recall after the Seahawks game last week, we were kind of like, you can kind of see it with Cam Ward. And on Sunday, you could absolutely not see it with Cam Ward. He was horrible. Quarterback progression, not necessarily linear. Ward was bad, including a 4th and 2 at the end of the half in the red zone, rolling right and missing Pollard on what should have been an easy completion. And I have 0 notes for the Titans in the second half. They commit a million penalties. They rough the punter. They almost roughed the punter twice, but they picked up the second one. Don't start any Titans. The Jags, well, we had the big return of Brian Thomas after he missed 3 games with his injured ankle. He had a catch on the left side on Jacksonville's first drive. He had a deep crosser converted in the third quarter. Unfortunately, that was it. He was out there a bunch. And in fact, Parker Washington was relegated to third receiver status. Thomas played 42 snaps, ran 24 routes. Washington played 21 snaps, ran 11 routes. But the 2 big pass plays of the game were on the Jags' second drive. On a 3rd and long, Washington runs the in-breaking route on the dagger concept and makes a great catch. Very next play, they run the exact same play on the same side, except this time it's Jacoby Myers running the in part of the dagger, and it's a better throw. He catches it on the run and takes it 50 yards. Down inside the 10, it's 2 carries for Bashal Tutin. He doesn't score, so Myers gets to pay it off on 3rd down to go up 7-3. After that fumbled kickoff, the first play of the second quarter is a touchdown to Brenton Strange down the seam. I like using Strange. This game was weird because on the one hand, for 3 quarters, it was really never in doubt, so you wouldn't expect a high-volume pass attack, but at the same time, Tennessee's defense doesn't stink, and Jacksonville's run game was completely bottled up. The only good run Travis Etienne had the whole game was called back by holding, and Etienne now appears clearly to be the second choice when the Jags are down in close, because late third quarter, Etienne helps get them down in close, but then he comes out, Tutin comes in, and he bowls his way in from the 2-yard line. I think you're mostly not using Tutin unless Etienne's hurt, and mostly you are using Etienne. This was just one sleepy game, and Etienne just never got untracked. And yet, the pass game worked, but Trevor Lawrence keeps missing throws he should make. Keeps throwing wobblers at weird spots for no reason. It was an easy game here, and they were mostly just playing out the string in the fourth quarter, but if you didn't know anything about the pedigree or histories of the 2 receivers, you saw Jacoby Myers being the one getting a jet sweep handoff in the second half and then also catching a couple of shallow crossers and basically having it feel like they are manufacturing touches for him and not Brian Thomas. I think you'd think maybe I should start Myers over Thomas. This is obviously all new. Who's to say the extent to which Thomas's ankle made him more of a decoy, and maybe that might change going forward. We can't legislate their usage in the future, but we can say in this one, Myers was definitely more front of mind as a target. I am thrilled that we're sponsored by Leesa. I just love my Leesa bed, truly, especially this time of year, running on vapors a little bit. Still love making the show, but definitely need to rest. I've been sleeping on a Leesa for about a decade. I sleep so well. It's so comfortable. And if you've been putting off getting a new mattress, this is it. This is what you've been waiting for. The Black Friday Cyber Monday sale runs through next Tuesday, and it's 30% off all mattresses. If you're worried about buying a mattress without sitting on it for 2 minutes like you would do in a superstore, don't be. You get 100 nights to sleep on your new bed, and if you don't love it after more than 3 months, they'll come pick it up and refund you, no questions asked. If you've suspected it's time for a new bed, maybe you wake up a little sore, I've been there. If you're ready to get a new one, check out leesa.com and you get 30% off all mattresses. Plus, if you check out using the code Harris, they'll take another $50 off the top. So if this is you, if you know it's time, if you're ready to look, leesa.com, 30% off. And to get another $50 off, use that code Harris.
Today's kickoff.
444, more like 4 forecast. John Daigle's a weatherman who needs to know 33%. John Daigle's a weatherman and huge Harry Potter fan. John Daigle's a weatherman.
It is John Daigle who's joining us here in December. What a pleasure to get him on. You can find his work at Establish the Run. You can look up his social media stuff wherever they have social media. It's your final go-round, I think, for the season. I mean, who knows, I could bother you again. But, like, you know, I like to leave the guests alone, you know, as we get to the end of the season. So if it is the last time to have you on, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it, and we'll see how desperate you get. Just because if you come calling in week 18, let's say, I may be the one that may not be ready for that.
No, brother, we're not doing that.
Good.
You know, I said it already. We're down to no Thursday guests, so all those Thursday guests are also like, you know, thanks guys. We're all running on fumes. I know what it's like. I'm sure you are too. We had a nice long conversation before we hit the button about our current states, which, you know, we're so lucky we get to do this. My audience is the absolute best in the world. I love you guys, all of you guys listening. So I love making the show, but we're just tired. You know, this is the time of the year when we're tired. I'll just ask you, John, how many hours did you sleep last night?
Not many, honestly. I'm still wrapping up everything that includes streaming for the playoffs at Establish the Run. But after this week, everything will become much lighter. Even this week, we'll go through the waiver wire. But as you know, you're probably getting a lot of questions about weeks 15 on, because that's what people care about right now, not the waivers for this week.
Yeah. How many hours did you sleep last night? I still need to know.
Oh, well, I'm not a good sleeper. I'll say that. And so I think 5 to 6, I believe it was.
That's brutal. How do you do it? How are you alive?
I'm a 4 a.m. like gym guy, and it just snowed for 48 hours in Chicago, and so it's just absolutely 9 degrees and miserable outside right now. So yeah, it's harder to wake up on those days. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, you're in Chicago, I'm in LA, so it's very early here too. And I'm up. I was up before 5 to make the show, but I also go to bed at 9 because I needed 7 hours.
Because you're a responsible adult. That's why.
Well, I have a lot of possums to feed. I have a lot of listeners who would like to get the show before, you know, if I did it on a normal schedule, it'll be out pretty late. But anyway, thank you for being here. We are all figuring it all out and making it through December, but it is the time when it feels like the groundwork has been laid. So we hope that you don't need the waiver wire desperately to make your team. But you know what? Some people are trying to make the playoffs. You got a borderline roster, and this is it. This is the last chance before you're going to make your fantasy playoffs. Hopefully we're here to help. I'm not even going to really ask you about like the Trey Bensons, no Marion Hamptons. I guess I kind of am asking, but like, I don't know when they're coming back. Maybe it's soon. It is getting to the point where it's hard to trust them their first game back, even if you are able to add them in a shallow league, right?
Yes, it is. But that's kind of what the position we're in, is that a lot of players are being dropped right now at this time. So it's hard to universally speak for everyone's league.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. Like, let's say Trey Benson has felt like he's the closest. Good heavens, I have no idea. But like, it's felt like for weeks and they opened his practice window like a while ago. They're getting close to the point where it's like they have to either use him or not use him all year. If he's active, how high can you imagine him getting? Let's say, no, don't worry about this week's matchup, just kind of generic running back list of people who are like still functional and alive. I can't see Trey Benson immediately being top 24.
Maybe not, but their offense has become a lot more potent and fun with Jacoby. Yeah. Oddly, you know, at the beginning of the year, their worst iteration of it included Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. But now Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson make it a lot of fun. So I just want exposure. I want a piece of that offense in general. And so I would still consider Trey Benson quite a high pickup big if too, he's back, given that he got downgraded to a DMP on Thursday and Friday last week.
Yeah, that is a big question. And Hampton, you know, talk about environments we thought we wanted. The Chargers certainly were that. And now, well, it's the Eagles on Monday night, and it's Justin Herbert with a broken hand, and not, as of our recording this, we're not positive he's going to play. So if you had a shallow league choice with players being dropped between Hampton and Benson, and you had to make a call about who you're going to add today, who would you pick?
I'm still adding Hampton, the first round superhero who the team entrusted with every single touch once Najee Harris went down for a few games until he got injured himself. I'm absolutely going with Hampton wherever he was dropped.
All right. This is the main list now, and of course, please don't crash your car. I will put our waiver ads into today's show notes. As always, John, you are well aware, as a longtime friend of the show, that when you add somebody, you also have to drop somebody, which means you give them the Thursday boot, because the waiver segment is, in fact, sponsored by Thursday Boots. Go to ThursdayBoots.com. What a great gift idea, the gift of boots. Fantastic idea. They have gift cards. Yeah, it's somebody in your life, let them buy a wonderful pair of boots. I've got pairs from like 10 years ago that came from Thursday. They are fantastic. I love them, ThursdayBoots.com. So the rules, as always, are players rostered in 1/3 of Yahoo leagues or fewer are eligible for this list. I'll turn it over to you. Who's your number 5 waiver ad for week 14?
We're digging deep because it's week 14, but let's begin with Lions rookie Isaac TesLaa, if only because once Amon-Ra St. Brown sprained his ankle in the first quarter on Thanksgiving, from that point forward, TesLaa ran just 3 fewer routes than Jameson Williams and 2 wide receiver sets. The Cowboys, the Lions Thursday appointed, are also allowing the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, so I do think it's a pretty good matchup for TesLaa as well if you're in need of a usable wideout, given that Amon-Ra sounds like he's going to miss at minimum multiple games.
My number 5 is Isaac TesLaa.
Look at that.
So we are in sync there, 1% rostered. I actually kind of went back and forth between him and Kayshon Boutte, who I don't mean to spoil if you have him higher on your list. But Boutte's only eligible he's 33% rostered, so it's a technicality, and also he's off this week. So I was like, okay, 1 week solution, let's put TesLaa on the list. Had you ever heard of this? Is his name Tom Kennedy? I've already forgotten from 5 days ago. Is his first name Tom?
Yeah, he's not really a journeyman, but he plays preseason with the Lions, which I know you're very fond of, the NFL preseason, every single year. So yes, I'm actually very familiar with Tom Kennedy, but he's not the number 70 overall pick like TesLaa was.
Yeah, it's funny because it felt like Kennedy was maybe a little more, even though TesLaa was out there running a bunch of routes, more routes than Kennedy did. It felt like Kennedy, because he probably can't play outside. He's much more the slot guy. Yeah. That he got to do a little of what Amon-Ra does, and I still picked TesLaa first. I'm with you. It felt like it was a harder decision to make until TesLaa scored the touchdown against the Packers, and then you go, phew, I can just, let's say TesLaa. That feels likelier than Tom Kennedy. I guess you're in a really deep league, super desperate, you could go Tom Kennedy. So my 5 also TesLaa. Who's your 4?
We touched on it earlier, but if Trey Benson is out, then it just goes straight back to Bam Knight. And I know we've done roller coasters with this Cardinals backfield from time to time, but at least over the last couple of games, since Amari DiMercado is battling that high ankle sprain, Bam Knight still has 28 touches to Michael Carter's 18, 2 touchdowns for Knight in that time as well. So he's just a player I'd plug in the RB16 and RB14 the last 2 weeks as well. I would just plug him in if Trey Benson remains out.
I put him at number 2.
Okay.
I'm kind of with you that he would be an okay, like, again, you're looking for an emergency running back. I said during the film review of that show on Monday, Bam Knight, the more these backup running backs get exposed, the more their teams look at them and go, well, if I squint, I can see a starter. But then, like, he had 2 carries in that game against Tampa where I felt like he made the run entirely by himself. It was great, really good stuff. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs couldn't have done it better. And on the second one, he's like, yeah, man. And then he gets to the end of the run and he fumbles. Because that's what these guys are. They're like, not quite, and that's kind of Bam Knight. And I'll also say, like, end of the game, Michael Carter was freaking dealing. So, like, he's involved too. But yes, like, you said it very well when we were talking about Benson, like, getting exposure to these offenses that we weren't expecting and that weren't good even in, like, early October isn't a bad idea. And the Cardinals have a chance to, he's the goal line guy, so he's got a chance. So I think that's a good call. My number 4, I put A.D. Mitchell on the list as my best receiver. Was he under consideration for you at all?
He's at the very top of my list. I believe he's the number one pickup.
Great. Could you please talk about him then? I don't need to.
Sure. Yeah. Since he was activated for the Jets, or acquired at the deadline, I should say, in place of Garrett Wilson, basically, his target share has increased every week, 24, 26. This past week, 39% of Tyrod's targets. He's been terrific against man coverage, even a couple weeks ago whenever he had a drop. And he does things, as A.D. Mitchell's one to do, that leaves you mesmerized. But the fact is, he does show up and earn targets every week, and we're just not sure when or if Garrett Wilson's going to return this year for a losing team. So A.D. Mitchell, unlike a lot of other guys we've talked about, TesLaa, Luther Burden's out there, Andre Yoshivas is out there. When you look at all those options compared to A.D. Mitchell, only one, Mitchell, in my opinion, actually stands out as his team's wide receiver one with really no competition around him. So that's why he's my top pickup.
He'd be my top receiver if that's who you're looking for.
Sure.
I just put running back. Put running backs higher, probably just because running backs are harder to find in the scheme of things. But sure, if you're adding A.D. Mitchell, are you adding to your problem of like wide receiver 3 and the infinite sadness? Cool. I just have one more wide receiver body that I don't know whether to start every week compared to these other guys. You probably are, but also you don't know what's going to happen. We've gotten injuries to some pretty big receivers here lately, and you might wind up being pretty happy that you have Mitchell on your bench. I talked about it earlier. He had a good game against the Falcons. He played very well. His catch, he had the long bomb catch where the defender falls down, but he had the pluck off the turf on the last drive that gets the Jets, into field goal range. They wind up making it to win. Probably the other shoe is always going to drop with A.D. Mitchell. Like I went to Texas for grad school. I like the Longhorns. I'm always, why isn't he better? Why wasn't he better in college? Why is someone else always making a big play and he's not? It does feel like we have some knucklehead factor, but maybe that gets changed. Who knows? I don't know these people. So he's your one. And he was my 4. Who's your 3?
I'm going back to Brenton Strange, finding a usable tight end. Not only the tight end 4 and tight end 8 for fantasy since he returned, but now in 3 of his last 4 games before he got injured that he completed a top 12 option, 22% target share these past 2 weeks, which is 8th among tight ends. And really, when you just look at the players that should be dropped whenever you talk about picking up someone like Brenton Strange to start, Dallas Goedert, T.J. Hawkinson, K. Dot, and David Njoku, all those guys, in my opinion, are expendable despite being rostered in over 50% of Yahoo leagues. So I would drop any of them for Brenton Strange right now. Yeah,
I didn't put him on the list. I'm going to be honest, I didn't put him on because I didn't realize he was at 33%. He and Kayshon Boutte are both the ones who are like getting eligible by the skin of their teeth. But we talked about him last week, 100%. He should be, we call him your Tunyon, because of Robert Tunyon's crazy year all those years ago. Why not? You flopping around a tight end? Sure. I grant you, on the one hand, I talked about that game just a minute ago on the show. On the one hand, it was great that he scored the touchdown going down the seam. I grant you that that's all he did. And yet, it's because it was a blowout and they didn't need, there's a world where Brenton Strange is very involved in a game where Jacksonville needs to push the envelope, and he's going to be in the top 10 among tight ends.
I think it helps a little bit too that Parker Washington was injured, and Washington the last month, for better or worse, has been their best receiver. So it may open up a little bit more opportunity for Strange.
Was he injured?
Yeah, Parker Washington got injured in that game.
A hip injury? I thought he came back in though. I guess he didn't. It's funny. I'm glad you said that because earlier in the show, not realizing that he didn't come back in the game, I should have realized that. But I was talking about how, he didn't run as many routes. Now I feel like I had dawn break over Marblehead. So all the more reason to be interested in Brenton Strange. Let me ask you completely independently. If you had to choose, if you had both Brian Thomas and Jacoby Myers on a team and had to decide for this game, week 14, who to start, I don't know my answer yet. I'm wondering if you know yours.
I think sadly it's Jacoby Myers. That's in hindsight. I know it's easy to say after he had the 90 yards and a touchdown, but also we've done this for the last 2 months. Brian Thomas has been available where he's been a flex at best. And so at this point, I think I just start Myers.
Yeah, we can easily tell ourselves the story that okay, they needed to get Thomas's feet wet or ankle wet or whatever, back in the, and then now the cavalcade of targets is going to come. But I think you're right. We probably are at the point. I'm kind of deciding along with you. You're convincing me. Like, we are at the point where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to drop Brian Thomas, but I'll probably just wait for a good game. And if I miss his first good game, great. Then I'll know it's possible, and then I'll consider that going forward.
That's how I felt with Bucky Irvin this past week as well. It's like I left him on my bench, and I'm not upset about that process because process, I've been correct about that process so many times this year. But for him to just come out and be like the RB1 again, it's like, God, I missed that one, but I won't miss it again.
Yeah, you're not going to miss it again. And, I guess it depends on your own mindset, but I'm with you. Like, that just doesn't bother me that bad. Like, I'm willing to live with the solutions that I've come up with as an alternative for these players. And then if I miss it's been so long, if I miss the first good game back, I want it being okay.
It makes it especially hard this time of year because everyone's going to try and rush, Mike Evans back, Jaden Reed back. And it's like, God, you still have to, every game from now on is must win for fantasy. And so it's just really hard to depend on those types of players in their first game back, which makes me reconsider my roster every single week as well.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so my 3 was Devin Singletary. Did he wind up on your list?
Honorable mention, but I get it. Just because the Giants are on bye, we're unclear how serious Tyrone Tracy's hip injury is from last night, but I completely agree. He should be picked up wherever you need a running back just in case.
Yeah, it's a just-in-case thing. I mean, he played really well, but I also don't think the Patriots' run defense is any great shakes right now. And having to hold on to him for a week and then use him in the first round of the fantasy playoffs, I don't want to, which is why I don't have him highest among these running backs. In fact, I have Bam Knight higher than him, as do you. And then I assume that your number 2 is probably my number 1. Go ahead.
I assume so, and that is Chris Rodriguez. Just talking about immediate usability on the waiver wire, which is really hard to come by in week 14. But Rodriguez offers that against this Vikings front 7 that did shut down Sam Darnold through the air because Brian Flores is a genius when it comes to scheming up blitzes and man coverage behind it. But the running game still leaked a lot to Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Not only that, but in the 2 games around Washington's bye, Rodriguez really has been passed the torch and out carrying Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt 26-13. And so I think he just can be started immediately, even in 10-team leagues, as a top 24 player this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't done the ranks. That's be later today. But you're right. That's the borderline that he's on. He belongs in that borderline. He's a good, solid. I keep, probably people are so tired of me saying this about him, but he's in that David Montgomery axis. He's in that. He's probably not as good as David Montgomery, but like a big dude who understands the assignment, has done his homework, and will run into your face. He's he doesn't take his NFL career for granted and understands that it was built on running through walls, even if those walls are made of 350-pound humans, and it takes a lot of punishment, but it feels like that's what the Commanders have needed at this point. And the JCM dancing stuff feels like it got old with those guys pretty quick. So yeah, he's my number 1. And from a strategy perspective, if people are in fab leagues, this probably isn't the time of year to be sparing the fab if you decide you really want to go after a player. For us, it's really the same. We both said if you need a receiver, we both said A.D. Mitchell. If you need a running back, you say Chris Rodriguez. If you're not allowed $0 bids in your league, I understand putting a few dollars for emergency, putting those aside. But otherwise, probably you just spend it, right?
Absolutely. Even in my waiver column on Establish the Run, I put 100% for every fab suggestion because you can't take it to the grave with you. What else are you going to do with it?
Yeah, agreed. So honorable mentions that I'll put in the show notes. We mentioned Strange. That was a great pick by you. I blew that. I probably should have had him on the list. That was awesome. Kayshon Boutte, I mentioned. He's on bye. Greg Dortch as the next receiver, just because Marvin Harrison, I don't know about his foot injury. Maybe he's out again. Devon Vele had a nice game, but it's the Saints. Pat Bryant. Is Pat Bryant suddenly the Broncos' number 2 receiver? Hopefully not, because that would be a big jumble.
We've had the rug pulled out from underneath us among that receiving room so many times. I just feel like Pat Bryant it's just going to happen to him eventually too.
Yeah, I agree. If you were going to stream a quarterback among quarterbacks who are available in 1/3 of Yahoo leagues or fewer, who would be your choice?
It's all touch and go because we're waiting on so many injuries, but Marcus Mariota's out there. Still don't mind going back to him just because it is a thinner week in having confidence in streamers. And then behind him in order, I would go either Tyrod Taylor or Trey Lance, probably in that order, just to get a rushing floor. Because again, the next best option, in my opinion, is probably Tua. And that's not even a matchup or player in general that you can trust because he's just been so bad the last month and a half.
Yeah, I didn't do the sub guys. We'll see if Mariota. I really want Jaden Daniels to play. That would be just make games much more fun. But you're right, Mariota might be in the mix. He played well in that Bronco game. He really did. But if
shockingly
it's not him,
well.
Yeah, if it's not him, I agreed. It's Tyrod Taylor, and I had Tua after that, and then Tyler Shuck. Gross. Don't want to do that. How about a streaming defense for this week?
Quite a few this week, actually, as it happens every year to us this time of the season when offensive linemen get injured, then quarterbacks get injured, then offenses perform worse, and then you can just stream defenses at will in December. But I have the Commanders versus whoever the Vikings want to throw under center. It doesn't matter because both quarterbacks we could take advantage of. And then after that, the Titans against the Browns.
I said the Vikings I said the Vikings and the Commanders in that same game. I don't mind streaming either defense. And in the case of the Vikings, I like streaming defenses I know are really, really good and hoping that the chips fall fine. I understand they haven't scored amazingly, but they play so well. And a lot of times, especially when you get against an offense that's which I think with no Jaden Daniels, Washington's would be. But you're right. If Jaden Daniels is back, I don't want to do that. Washington would be my choice after that. Against whoever Minnesota's running out there at quarterback.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, we did it. All these names are in today's show notes. You've been coming on for a lot of years now, my friend. I really appreciate you doing it for all these years. The Yacht Possums love you very much, as do I. You can find John at Establish the Run. You can find him all over social media. He does fantastic work. What a pleasure to get you on this season again. You're the best.
And please don't fret reaching back out in the off season. I don't know what we talk about. Definitely not Harry Potter, but we can figure it out.
Thank you so much for listening. Let me thank today's sponsors, because without sponsors, there's no show. We had Wild Grain, we had Pick Six from DraftKings, and we had Lisa for a wonderful mattress. If you were interested in anything I had to say about today's sponsors, you can find their information in today's show notes. If you don't currently have the means to support a sponsor, or you're just not vibing with today's sponsors, that's totally wonderful. I'm so happy to have you listening. If you listen to the sponsors, just at least hear their pitch. That's awesome, because maybe sometime down the road you'll feel differently. But just really having you listen is the best support that I could ever have from any of you. I appreciate you all so much. There's just, I say it a million times, there's absolutely no reason this show should exist except for all of you, because really, you're magical. And every guest who comes on the show, including John, you didn't hear it because I had already hit the button, but John was like, your listeners are unbelievable. It's true. I have the best group. I don't know how it happened. It's all because of all of you. You're the best. You're wonderful. You can find a full list of all the current sponsors at harrisfootball.com. I have now told you the schedule, so for those on the free side, you're going to have to wait till Friday to the next show. If you want to consider becoming a Yacht Club member, you can hear tomorrow's show with Andy for $5 a month. As we talked about with Andy yesterday, we're also going to be doing a show once a week through the entire off season. A lot of football content, but some stuff that isn't football, talking to friends of ours who are like, actors and writers and stuff like that. So I think you'd find that to be pretty fun as well. You can find information about how to subscribe to the Yacht Club at harrisfootball.com as well. So those of you who are in the Yacht Club, you'll be hearing from me tomorrow with Andy. For everybody else, I'll be back on Friday with Jake Trowbridge and with cousin Josh, and we'll have a great time talking with those guys as well. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you next time.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.